Found out my girlfriend planned to humiliate me with her friends. So I walked away, took photos of their group chat. A bank alert hit our joint card. I saved her draft expense report, and the after-hours access log sealed it. And she lost her job the first time my stomach dropped was over a 12-second voicemail. I was in the control room at the Lakewalk water plant when our shared building buzzer number lit up my screen. I pressed play and heard girls laughing, then Saskia's voice saying, "Just say it loud." The message cut off like someone hung up fast. I work the early shift at the plant and my job is simple to explain. I watch the gauges, pull water samples, and turn valves until the numbers settle. When the water looks clear, it does not always mean it is safe, so I test the water anyway. That morning, my hands shook so much I almost spilled a sample cup. Saskia and I had lived together in a duplex in West Duluth for 18 months. Our place always smelled like citrus dish soap because she scrubbed the sink like it offended her. A little fish tank bubbled by the window, and the old radiator clicked at night like it was counting time. Every morning she left her keys on a chipped ceramic tray, right where she knew I would see them. I was 41 and tired of guessing what we were. I had a promotion offer in Ashland, Wisconsin, and I had to accept or decline by Monday morning. If we were going to move, I wanted to move as a team, not as a question mark. So I bought a ring, not huge, just honest, and planned to ask her on Friday. Saskia said she wanted the proposal to feel real. Then she said she wanted her friends there because they are my people. I told her I imagined a quiet table, just us, with the lake outside. She laughed like I had suggested wearing socks with sandals. "Oren, do not be weird," she said, and she kissed my cheek like she had solved it. At lunch, I could not stop thinking about that voicemail. I called her and tried to sound calm. I said, "Hey, our buzzer line got a weird voicemail. It sounded like your voice." She went sweet for half a second, then sharp, and said, "It is nothing. Stop looking for storms when the sky is fine." That was confrontation one, even if it did not feel like it yet. I asked and she answered, and the answer was a door shutting. A good rule is simple, and I learned it late. If a question makes someone mad, it is usually the right question. By the end of my shift, I had almost talked myself out of proposing. I told myself the voicemail was a mistake, like a pocket dial. I told myself love means giving people room to be messy. Still, in my head, I kept hearing laughter and the words say it loud. Friday night came with clean snow and hard wind off the lake. Saskia wore a green dress and bright lipstick, and she looked like a person who always wins arguments. She linked her arm through mine as we walked into the Loon and Lantern Supper Club. It was warm inside, with low lamps and the smell of butter and wood smoke. Her friends were already there. They took up the whole booth like they owned it. One man sat closest to Saskia, a tall guy with a neat beard and calm eyes, and she introduced him as Hale Merritt. She called him my lawyer friend, like that was a fun hobby, not a job. I tried to be polite and steady. Hale asked what I did for work, and I told him I keep drinking water safe. He nodded like he understood pressure and risk. Then Saskia's friend across from me lifted her phone a little and said, "We need a photo. This place is perfect." Dinner moved fast. Saskia kept touching my arm like she was marking me as hers. She called me responsible in a tone that made it sound like boring. I smiled anyway because I was still holding the ring box in my pocket and I wanted the night to turn. When dessert arrived, my heart started hammering. I slid out of the booth and stood beside the table. The booth felt too small for what I was about to do, but I did it anyway. I opened the box and said her name like a promise. For 1 second, Saskia's eyes went wide. Then she looked at her friends and a grin broke across her face like a crack. She lifted her chin and said, "So delusional. Imagine thinking I'd marry him." She laughed after she said it, and her friends laughed too, like they were waiting for that line. My face went hot and then cold. The room got quiet around our booth, even if no one else stopped eating. I closed the ring box with a soft click. I said, "You're right," and I walked out. Outside, the wind hit me like a slap. I did not look back, not even once. A small hook of hope tried to catch in my chest, and I ripped it loose by moving faster. I knew if I stayed, I would start begging for respect, and that is a kind of self-harm. The drive home felt unreal. Every light looked too bright, every car too close. I kept hearing her laugh and that word, delusional, like it was stamped on my forehead. When I pulled into our driveway, I sat in the dark and stared at the front steps. I went inside and kept my hands busy so my mind could not break me. I grabbed a laundry basket and started filling it with my clothes. I took my work boots, my plant badge, and the framed photo of my dad that sat on the shelf by the fish tank. The radiator clicked behind me like a slow countdown. I did not break anything. I did not leave a dramatic note on the counter. I just packed like I was moving before a storm. That is another simple rule when you leave clean and take proof of what you take. At midnight, my phone buzzed with a bank alert. It was our joint card, and it showed a charge at the Loon and Lantern for a big amount, then another at a place called Harbor Lights Lounge. They were still out. My hands curled into fists, then opened again. I test the water because the eye lies, and that alert told me the night was not done. I carried my last bag to my car and loaded it like I was stacking sandbags. I left her side of the closet untouched. I left the fish tank running and the kitchen light off like normal. Then I sent one text and turned my phone face down. Imagine thinking I'd stay. I drove to a small month-to-month room I had found above a canoe rental shop in Two Harbors. It smelled like wet rope and old pine boards, but it was quiet. The mattress was thin, and the heater rattled like it had a cough. Still, it was mine, and my chest loosened when I shut the door. By morning, Saskia had called 30 times. She sent texts that jumped from "Where are you?" to "You embarrassed me" to "Come home right now." I did not answer. Silence is not weakness. Sometimes it is the only fence you can build fast. Saturday afternoon, she found me anyway. She pulled into the gravel lot behind the canoe shop, hair still perfect, eyes bright with anger. She marched up the stairs like she was coming to fire someone. I opened the door just enough to hear her. That was confrontation too. I said, "Why did you do it?" "Why laugh like that?" She snapped. "You put me on the spot in front of everyone and you made it weird." When I pushed and said, "You could have said no without crushing me," she flipped it harder and said, "You are too sensitive, Oren, and you are acting like a victim." I stared at her and felt something settle in me. Her words were not sorry words. They were control words. I said, "Take your keys off my ring," and when she hesitated, I held out my hand until she dropped them in my palm. She left without looking back, like she had done me a favor. Her tires spit gravel as she drove off. I stood there and listened to the lake wind. A mini hook hit me then, sharp and clear. The proposal was not the first time she had chosen a crowd over me. It was just the loudest. That night I went back to the duplex while she was at work. I used my key, walked in, and moved only my things. I did not snoop through drawers. I did not open closets that were not mine. I went straight to the office corner where our shared desktop sat, the one we used for bills and the lease. The browser was still open. A group chat window sat on the screen with the name Lantern Crew. I saw my name in the thread without even scrolling. One message from Saskia said, "If he does it, I will say the line and we will see if he begs." I felt sick, then calm, like my body chose numbness to survive. Another message from someone else said, "Do it loud so the whole booth hears." Hale had replied with one word, "Careful." In that moment, I realized the voicemail was not a mistake. It was a plan that tripped over its own feet. I took pictures of the screen with my phone. I did not forward them to anyone yet. I just saved them, like I save water test results when something looks off. Advice number 3 is this: keep receipts, but do not throw them in anger, because anger wastes them. On the desk was a second window, a work portal page, also still open. Saskia's expense tool had a draft report titled Client Relationship Dinner. Under the client name, she had typed my full name. The attached receipt was the loon and lantern charge, the one that hit our joint card, and she had a note asking for reimbursement. That was the big twist, and it knocked the air out of me. She had not only laughed at my proposal, she had tried to turn the night into a work story like I was a prop she could expense. The humiliation was not random, it was useful to her. I printed the draft to a PDF and saved it to a flash drive. Then I logged out and shut down the computer. In the kitchen, the citrus soap smell hit me, and I almost laughed from how normal it was. Normal can be a costume. I took one more thing before I left. On the entryway hook was a spare keycard to her credit union branch, the kind you scan to open the staff door. She had left it there for emergencies like locking yourself out. I did not take it. I just took a picture of it on the hook and I walked out. Sunday night, I got a text from Hale. It was the first message from anyone in that friend group. It said, "I owe you a straight talk. Call me when you can." I did not trust him, but I trusted facts, so I called. Hale's voice was calm and low, like he was used to tense rooms. He said he had been at the dinner because Saskia asked him to keep it light. He paused and added, "She told us she was going to embarrass you so you would chase." Then he said something that made my throat tighten. "That voicemail was me. I left it on purpose, hoping you would see it and not walk into that." I did not know what to do with that. Part of me wanted to yell and part of me wanted to thank him. He did not excuse himself. He just said, "I laughed once and I regret it. I will not cover for her now." We met late that night at a coin laundromat off Central Entrance. The place hummed with dryers and smelled like hot soap and metal. Hale sat on a plastic chair with his coat still on, like he planned to leave fast. He looked older up close, not by age but by the weight in his eyes. He told me what he could, short and sharp. "Do not argue in texts," he said. "Do not go back alone if you think it will turn into a scene." He also said, "If she used work money or work access around this, it will come back on her." 2 days later, it did. Saskia showed up at my room again, but this time she was not angry. Her face was pale and wet, and she shook like she was cold inside. It had been a week since the proposal, and she looked smaller than I remembered. She cried on my doorstep and said my name like it was a rope. She said, "I messed up, I know I was stupid, I was trying to be funny." I did not invite her in. I stood in the doorway and listened because letting her speak did not cost me anything. A hook line hit me then too. Tears can be real and still be selfish. She held up her phone and showed me an email from her job. The subject line said, "Disciplinary meeting notice." Attached were still images stamped with time and date. The pictures showed Saskia and 3 friends inside her credit union branch after midnight, holding champagne flutes in the lobby. One still showed a whiteboard behind them with messy writing. Even through the blur, I could read the words, "Imagine thinking I'd marry him." In another still, Saskia had my ring box open in her hand, like it was a toy. That was the killer receipt, and she brought it to me herself. Her voice cracked as she said, "They are going to fire me." I did not smile, but I did feel the truth settle like clear water. Actions do not disappear just because someone regrets them. She tried to step closer, and I stepped back. I said, "We will handle the lease through mediation. Do not come here again." She wiped her face and said, "I need you," and I answered, "You needed respect first." The next morning, a new bank alert hit my phone. Saskia had tried to transfer money out of our joint account, just a few hundred, like she thought I would not notice. I froze the account and moved my paycheck to a new one. It was not revenge, it was a boundary with a lock. A week later, we sat in a mediation conference room at the credit union's downtown office. The carpet smelled like stale coffee, and the air conditioner made a thin whining sound. Saskia sat across from me with her hands clasped too tight. Hale sat beside me, calm as stone, not as her friend now, but as the man who had chosen a side. This was confrontation 3, the only one that mattered. Saskia started with denial. She said, "Those screenshots are fake and that chat is not mine." Hale slid my photos across the table and she blinked hard like the paper burned. Then she minimized. She said, It was a joke, okay? It was one night. Everyone jokes. I kept my voice low and said, jokes do not require a target who loves you. I test the water when something tastes wrong, and her words tasted like poison with sugar on top. Then she partially admitted. She looked down and said, fine, I said it, but I did not think you would leave. She tapped the table and added, I thought you would cool off and come back. Her eyes flicked up like she was checking if the old control still worked. Then came the emotional move. She started crying, louder this time, and said, you ruined my life over one sentence. She reached toward me like the room could not see. I leaned back and said, you ruined your own life by saying it on purpose and then taking it to work. Hale laid out the receipts in the order I needed them. First the communication, the voicemail and the group chat about making me beg. Then the money, the bank alert, and her draft expense report naming me as a client for reimbursement. Finally, the location, the after-hours access log she had downloaded, showing her badge entry at 12:14 a.m. Saskia's face collapsed as the stack grew. She stopped crying when she saw the access log, like the air ran out. Hale spoke once and his voice did not rise. Your employer already has the security stills, he said, and you know what that means. Saskia whispered, they were supposed to be my friends. Hale did not soften. He said, friends do not ask you to burn your job for a laugh. That was the deep-cut line that landed harder than any shout. The mediator helped us split the lease cleanly. Saskia kept the duplex and the fish tank, and I walked away with my share and my name clear. Hale filed a short statement about the expense report and the after-hours entry. He did not lecture, he just pushed the truth into the right hands. 2 days later, Saskia lost her job. She texted me once, a long message full of blame and panic, and I did not answer. Her friend group dumped her too, because people who laugh in a pack rarely stand alone in a storm. The shame she aimed at me rolled back on her, and it did not care how sorry she felt. Winter turned into spring. I took the promotion in Ashland and moved across the lake like I had planned, just without her. My new plant was louder, bigger, and the work was harder, but it felt honest. I became a lead operator, and I learned to test the water fast, because safety depends on small habits. Months later, Saskia tried again, not at my door this time. She sent a message to my work email through a professional reference request, like she could hide behind a form. The subject line made my chest tighten for a second, then loosen. I forwarded it to Hale and deleted it. I met Inez Calder at a community cleanup day by the shoreline. She worked with a wildlife rehab group, and she spoke gently even when the wind was loud. She did not ask for drama, and she did not laugh at soft things. Being with her felt like breathing air that was not trying to trick me. One evening, Inez and I ate dinner from a food truck near the harbor, standing under string lights that swayed in the breeze. She held my hand without squeezing, and that simple touch felt like respect. I looked at the lake and thought about how clear water takes work, not wishes. Then my phone buzzed with a new notification, and I did not open it right away. Thank you so much for watching the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe the channel.